back to the unexpected guru, aka Alimuya. And of course, just wanted to show you out here. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment, especially if you have any feedback or questions. And today we'll hop on to the Hazmat practice test. And this could basically pertain to a tanker with Hazmat, or basically if you're hauling Hazmat materials. And for this practice test, we need to get at least 30 questions right, or we get 30 questions and you need 24 right, and the passing score is 80 as usual. And one main thing you really need to know about the hauling hazmat, there are of course at least 9 hazardous materials, but there's this demonstration here I wanted to show that includes at least 8 of the 9. As we know, the ninth is just miscellaneous. So the first one is of course the explosive, and this could be like all explosive materials besides like fireworks and so forth. So there are division within that. Besides the gases being number 2, then you have flammable liquids for number 3, number 4 flammable solids, and 5 the oxidizers, substance, organ peroxides, and so forth. Then you have 6 being the toxic and infectious substance, which are also known as poison. Then 7 we have radio materials, which is basically radioactive. Then finally number 8, the corrosives, and these are like your battery and so forth. And 9 being miscellaneous. I don't know why they didn't include it on this chart, but it was interesting and wanted to point that out and so forth. Anyhow, passing by to the practice test here. Let's go ahead and knock this. Boom. Whoa. Let's see, restart this. I don't know what was that. Here we go. I think it's just resuming somewhere, but we'll come back to it. Here we go. Which of the following materials are acceptable floor liners for moving division 1.1 or 1.2 materials? We mentioned that each class, at least a few of them, have divisions within them, but this is pertaining to the liners, basically being the type of material within the trailer. So it has non-ferrous matter, that is correct. Stainless steel, you don't need steel when you're basically hauling explosive and so forth. And then you have carbon steel, not needed, or all of the above. So the goal will be that one, the first one, knowing that the non-ferrous metal explosives should not be near anything that could emit sparks, basically starting fire. The floor liner or moving division 1.1 or 1.2 materials must be either non-metallic materials or non-ferrous metals. Stainless steel and carbon steel are ferrous metals, so basically attach or attract fire, so you don't need no sparks. Then we have containment rules specify, similar to my part 1 and part 2, so it's just basically pertaining to the spill and hazardous, but we still got to go down the list here to acknowledge the other options. So first one, we have how to safely contain a spill of hazardous material, which is correct. Then you have how to drive safely with hazardous materials, which you should know already, but that's not their job. How to make, load, transport, and unload hazardous materials safely. That is true as well. So we select that, acknowledging that the containment rules cover the entire process of transporting hazardous materials safely from how to the package to be started basically until unload them safely at the end of the trip. So they're all about that. Okay, if a shipment contains both hazardous and non-hazardous materials, the shipping paper must highlight the hazardous materials in a contrasting color. You don't want that. List the hazardous materials first. That's definitely what's necessary. Do either of the above. You could technically neglect and just not do it, because you shouldn't basically do different. But if you were to do it in a case of emergency, you would list the hazardous materials first and also proceed to not accepting it, because you never know. You cannot put both of them together. So basically, if a shipping paper describes both hazardous and non-hazardous materials, the materials must be out of the reader. The shipping must either list them first or highlight them in contrasting color. So you're supposed to do either of those. To determine if you need to use placards, which of the following is not something you need to know? The amount of substance or material being shipped, that is, of course, you need to know. The manufacturing date of the material, you don't necessarily need to know that. The hazard class of the substance or material, that is true. The amount of hazardous materials of all class in your vehicles. Yes, so all of these are true except the manufacturing date. Mainly due to not, let's see here, you do not need to know when a product was manufactured or expires unless your company has an additional responsibility. You do need the amount of hazardous materials being shipped, its class, and the amount of all hazardous materials of classes that will be carried within the vehicle during your trip until the end. What are the major differences between cargo tanks and portable tanks? If we go back to our little notebook, we know that cargo tanks are tanks that are attached to the motor vehicle, basically your office. So you have to get loaded and unloaded while you're hooked to it. And portable, you could basically unattach and let it get charged and come hook up to it later. So portable tanks must show the owner or lease's name on them, definitely. Cargo tanks are filled while on the vehicle. Portable tanks are filled while off the vehicle, so you could do that. Cargo tanks are permanently attached to vehicles. Portable are temporarily attached. We know all of the above are major differences, so that is true. All of these are the major difference. I don't know why my little mouse here is excited every time I move it. It clicks something, but yes, all of the above are major differences between cargo tanks and portable tanks are about the preference, basically permanency of cargo tanks. Since cargo tanks are permanently attached to the commercial vehicles, they are filled while the vehicles, and they do not need to display the owner's name separately. Portable tanks are loaded and unloaded while they are off the vehicle since they're portable. Portable tanks are then put on a vehicle for transport. They must display the owner, so if it's basically a portable, you're leaving it, so it has to match your main office. So you leave it there, it could be loaded whenever you come back and so forth. How often should you check the tires on a placarded trailer that has dual tires? You got dual tires at the start of each trip and every time you stop. That is correct. Every time you stop, true, that's included. Once every 3 hours, false. Once every 100 miles, technically it's 50 or whichever comes first, but the goal is at the start and every time you stop. If you have a placarded trailer when dual tires, you should check the tires at the start of each trip and each time you stop for any reason, whether to rest or refuel. Use a tire pressure gadget to get an accurate reading so you are safe to roll. You must never smoke or perform any activity involving fire within 25 feet of class 1, 2, 3, and 4. That is correct. And then you have option here, class 4.2 only, false, because you're explosive. So there are different divisions and so forth. Class 1 only, false. Class 5.2 only, no. So all of these here, which are the first explosive. And I actually wanted to mention something about, let's hop back to it. This is some game right here. Where was it? Right here. So I wanted to mention this here, kind of like ran through it. When we mentioned we had 9 classes, and here is listed 8. The good way that I discovered to actually remember this, remember when I was training for this or somewhere, he came back. It's basically every, excuse me, so the explosive gases. So it's basically every firefighter. There was a term, I'm gonna try to link up the link here. Every firefighter likes reading dirty, what you call it, magazine or so forth, in a way to actually remember this. So I'm gonna throw that in there so I don't forget it. But proceeding to this, those are the classes. You should not risk smoking in close proximity to any class of hazardous materials. However, there are specific rules for the following classes. No smoking or holding a lighted smoking object such as cigar or pipe within 25 feet of class 1, 3, 4.1, 4.2, or 5. Explosive, oxidizers, flammable, liquids or solids, or spontaneously combustible materials. Comprende? Let's get it. If you are carrying Division 1.2 or 1.3 materials, how far away must you park for the traveled portion of the road? This is similar to what we had mentioned, but now you're basically transporting like explosive. It goes first at least 20 feet, false. At least half a mile, no. At least 10 feet, no. At least 5 feet is similar. So 5 feet, unless if you're 25 feet going to like a rusty hour or whatever. Less. So basically, that's what it's saying. If you are carrying Division 1.2 or 1.3 materials, never park your vehicle less than 5 feet away from a traveled portion of the road or highway, wherever the emergency occurs. If you can get that far away, it is considered a serious emergency and you should call emergency services. You should be with your dispatcher as usual, but only you know your potential when it comes to your truck. What is the purpose of a driver placarding his or her vehicle? What is the point of us having those fancy identification of the materials we're hauling? Not to just show, let's say here, to force other drivers to stay 20 feet away in every direction. No, they should know better. To communicate risk, yes, because that's what we're doing when we have those special numbers. To warn those with children to drive in another lane. No, not really. To give something interesting to look at while they drive. No. So it's basically to communicate the risk here. Placards are signs posted on the outside of the vehicle to warn others about hazardous materials. These signs identify the hazard class of the cargo, which of course alerts the emergency teams to know what kind of stuff you're hauling and the risk level. When shippers package the materials, they are trying to make it easy to identify, of course, make it easy to open and close the packages. Make it as light as possible. Do all of the above. So technically they're all true in a way, but the goal will be to identify it. The regulations or packages of hazardous materials require shippers to make it easy for drivers, destination personnel, and emergency personnel to identify the contents quickly and easily. So making it easy to be identified while they know they have to consider all of those. Boom. Question 11. In what location must you keep your shipping papers that describe any hazardous materials? Where do you normally keep your documents or your information? In a fireproof pouch under the driver's seat that you can reach while driving? Not necessarily. In a fireproof pouch under the passenger seat while you're driving? No. In a locked glove compartment whenever you are out of the vehicle? No. On the driver's seat whenever you are out of the vehicle? Yes, that's the only one that technically makes sense, besides others that you can do, but neither of these are correct. Your shipping papers for hazardous materials must be visible and accessible to emergency personnel at all times, including when you are out of the vehicle. Therefore, whenever you are away from your vehicle, they must be on the driver's seat. within reach, just in case of an emergency. And we have this beautiful picture of a tank coming to a railroad here. And if you, let's say if your vehicle is placarded, you must stop blank feet before the nearest rail at a railroad crossing. We all know that you have to do it at least 15 to 50 feet. But here it goes 10 to 35, no. 5 to 20, no. The goal is 25. But here the only option that makes sense is 15 to 50, which basically pertains to if your vehicle is placarded, you must stop between 15 and 15 feet from 15 and 50 feet, sorry about that, from the nearest rail at a railroad crossing. After you have done this, proceed once you are sure that no train is approaching, and do not shift while you are on the tracks. Otherwise, you're going to be in the news. And we have question 13 here. Do you need to stop before a railroad crossing if you are hauling 100 pounds of Division 4.3 materials? First, you have to think, what is Division 4? What is in that section? And we know that it is the flammable solids. So if you have the flammable solids, it's necessary. So the answer is yes. And then we have option 2, yes, but only if the arm is down telling vehicles to stop. No, you just pass if you're able to stop. And then you have it, no, which we know it's not. And then you go, it is possible to tell without more information. You should know, but technically whenever you're hauling any hazard, you want to stop. If your hauling is placarded, or if your vehicle is placarded, you must stop 15 to 50 feet from the nearest railroad at a crossing. After you have done this, proceed once you are sure that there's no train approaching, and do not shift while you are on the track. So it's similar to what we just answered earlier, but it just wanted to assure that you know what talking about or studied and so forth. Which of the following hazard classes use a transport index to determine how much of it can be loaded on a single vehicle for transport? So the key term here is hauling and also requiring index. And index pertains to the radioactive materials, but let's go through the list here. We have class 3, which are known as flammable liquids, or class 1 explosive, or class 7 radioactive materials, or class 4 flammable solids. Answer is radioactive. Radioactive materials must be controlled by a transport index that tells each transport company and truck driver how much they can carry, pertaining to the weight limitation or expansion and also legal weight. The radiation given off by radio materials can containment the rest of the load, so it could just mess up everything else. So it's good to know that if you are already carrying 100 pounds of silver cyanide, what precaution must you take if you are given papers at a dock to carry 100 cartons of battery acid? And when you're hauling explosive materials, you really gotta know your hazmats, and you cannot really mix multiple classes, or you gotta know which one to mix or to carry, because anything could happen. So first questions here are option. We have make sure the battery acid is loaded on top of the silver cyanide. No, you don't want to do that. Make sure there is plenty of space between the two. Most people will do that, but there's shifting that occurs, and the goal is not to have anything mixed together. Inform someone and do not load the battery acid. Correct. So one of them has to be loaded. And since the battery acid is number 2, just tell them cannot carry the corrosive materials. Make sure the silver cyanide is loaded on top of the battery acid. You don't want to load both of them together. So the answer will be denying the battery because they're corrosive materials. Silver cyanide and battery acid are on the list of materials that cannot travel together for safety reasons. And you could just refer to the manual of your state, but they all should be the same, indicating that silver cyanide is a division 6.1 material, poison, It cannot be loaded with acids because their mixture can release hydrosonic acid, which is extremely poisonous. One breath of it, you'll turn into something you don't want to be. We continue here. Which of the following three hazard materials or classes should not be placed into a temperature controlled trailer? One with a heater or AC conditioner unit. First option, we have classes 1, 4, and 5. And you just have to know what are actual the classes, but you don't want to do that. And then class 1, 3, and 4, no. Classes 1, 3, and 6, definitely not. And you do class 1 or 2.1 and 3. So the answer for this will be that, and just basically knowing which classes are those specifically. For me, I'm just well aware of them. And basically the three classes that must be kept in a trailer without automatic heating and cooling are explosive 1, which is option 4 here, known as the flammable gases, and of course flammable liquids, since these are particularly volatile, which is like, they could cause some crazy stuff if left at a controlled location. The Emergency Response Guide, ERG, known as, is studied by emergency personnel to help the public safe. Yes, that's true. Let's Go was created by the U.S. Department of Transport, which is known as DOT, and used nationwide. Yes, contains an index of hazardous materials numbers, which is why you must label things correctly, and technically does all of the above. But technically the goal will be all of the above as usual. The Emergency Response Guidebook was created by the U.S. Department of Transportation and is used by emergency personnel such as firefighters, paramedics to transport trucking emergencies. The guidebook is indexed by hazardous materials identification number, which is why it is very important that shipping papers be labeled correctly. Bada bing, bada boom. You may not park a vehicle carrying explosive within blank feet of an open fire. First option, we have 300. The goal will be at least 200 feet. And second option, 200, which is the answer we're looking for. And finally, 3 here, we have 100. 300. When driving a load of division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 hazardous materials, which are explosive, you must park at least 300 feet away from any bridge, tunnel, or structure. You must basically maintain the same distance from any gathering place or open fire. So the goal is to stay safe. Cargo tanks are filled while they are off your vehicle, then attached for transportation. No, they're not very specific. Then you go bulk packaging permanently attached to your vehicle. It could be any sort of basically attachment from bulk to just smooth and so forth. Bulk packaging temporarily attached to your vehicle, only made in one size. So cargo tanks, they are bulk packaging permanently attached due to basically commercial vehicles. There are many different styles for transporting a variety of different materials. So it's basically having a vehicle with a tank. Now this is just pertaining to the specific. So bulk packaging permanently attached to your vehicle. If hazardous materials is spilling from your vehicle, do not move your vehicle unless safety requires. So first option, we have in an upwind direction. False. Any more than 500 feet, you shouldn't even move it at all. And then we have option any more than safety requires. So you don't want to move your vehicle in a spilling situation because you'll just be extending the damage. You do not want to leave a trail of hazardous materials behind you as you drive. The carrier will have to pay for the cleanup of any containment areas. Basically, any what is this word, man? Contaminated, yes, any contaminated areas, any places that are messed up, which can be very expensive. Minimize the extent of the contamination. Move your vehicle only enough to ensure the safety of the general public. Then park your vehicle and your contact information as necessary, based onto the procedure, so that you stay safe, and send somebody else if necessary. If you cannot really like leave the vehicle, you send somebody else with any necessary information to bring help. You don't abandon your vehicle. A safe haven is a place where it is safe to dump hazardous materials. No. The slang term for the stop at the driving of the day, basically when you're carrying hazardous materials. No. A place that has been approved for parking unattended vehicles carrying explosive and so forth. Yes. A place to stay once you have reported your company for illegal activity. False. So it's an approved government location. So the term safe haven refers to a place created by local authorities where you can safely leave your truck unattended while it holds explosive materials. This solves a trucking dilemma that has often led drivers to make risky decisions, such as driving through the night so that they could stay with their loads. What action should you take if you discover your hazardous material shipment leaking at a rest stop, but there is no phone available? It's basically rephrasing what we just did previously. Keep driving slowly and cautiously until you reach a phone booth. No, because you're just adding to the fire. Keep driving for help as quickly as possible. No, you want to stop and assure that it's fixed. Leave your truck parked with its emergency lights on and walk for help. No. Send someone for help with all that information. Correct. Cleaning up a spill, huge contamination in particular, is very expensive. Therefore, if you notice a leak, stop as soon as possible and get off the road. Stay with your vehicle because liability and safety issues. Send someone for help. You will need to send a large amount of vital information, including your location, direction of travel, hazard class and ID number, and carrier's location, besides the cargo's destination. Make sure you write it all down for the next person to attain assistance. Which of the following is not an acceptable type of making for hazardous materials? So marking here, that's the key word. Identification number, UN marks, name in italics, correct? Descriptive name in a Roman print. So which of the following is not an acceptable type of marking for hazardous materials? It will be the name in italics. A hazardous materials proper shipping name should be displayed strictly in Roman print. No italics. Acceptable markings include the appropriate descriptive name as well as UN marks. Instructions, way ID number, and specification cautious, or some combination of these. But that name cannot be in italics. What are the two main places where the hazardous materials identification number appears? On the shipping papers and on the package. Yes, on the package and on paperwork at the shipping point of origin. That's all. That's where you got it anyway. So continuing, on the package and on paper at the shipping destination. And finally, we have on the shipping papers and on a secret document in the driver's wallet. No, it should just be on the papers and on the package. The two main places where you must keep the hazardous materials identification numbers are on your shipping papers and on the packages, since these are the places that emergency personnel have been trained to check immediately. You don't want to keep it in your wallet and you're blown up, or you're not in the car, or the vehicle, we should say. Besides the shipping papers and the packages, the other two places where the hazardous materials identification numbers should appear are, give me 1 second, I gotta go grab the charger for the computer before we lose each other. What happened now? I'm running into an obstacle. Just call that a plug. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. This thing is about to start tripping on me. We're not doing that today. Get some juice laptop. Yeah, we back. Alrighty, now we got charger back. Let's go where we were at. Question number 25. Besides the shipping papers and the packages, the other two places where the hazard materials identification number must appear are on all bulk packaging and on the cargo tanks. They don't really need to be on the cargo tanks. On the back of the truck and inside the glove compartment, on the gas tank, on a sticker in the glove compartment, on a temporary license plate holder, and the steering wheel. We need it on all bulk packaging and on the cargo tanks. In addition to the two main locations for the hazardous materials identification numbers, you must also display it on the cargo tanks and on all bulk packages, depending on what you're carrying each. A plot carded vehicle must carry a fire extinguisher with minimum rating of, it's similar to all trucking, so technically the answer here we have is 10 BCs, which is what we're looking for, and option 2, 10 AB, that's incorrect, we don't need that, or 5 BC or 5 AB, so we know the answer is 10, mainly because all placarded vehicles are required to have a fire extinguisher with a minimum UL rating of 10 BC. That is, it must be able to extinguish a 10 square foot Class B fire, which includes almost all flammable liquids, and must be electronically non-conductive, hence its C rating. And the goal is to have two of them, especially when you're carrying an explosive or hazmat materials, so you don't run out depending on your situation. Which of the following are necessary qualification for non-bulk packaging? A maximum net mass of 400 K, which is 882 pounds or less, and a maximum capacity of 450 liters of basically 119 gallons or less as receptacle for a solid. That is true. A water capacity of 454 kilograms, which is compared to 1,000 pounds or less as receptacle for gases. That is true, because if you're hazardous or explosive, you're carrying gases or liquid. So that's basically the category of the hauling material. A maximum capacity of 4 150 liters, which is comparable to 119 gallons or less, as receptacle for liquid? The answer will be all of the above, mainly because we're talking about gases and liquid, and the specific numbers designated to acquire the threshold. Non-bulk packaging has specific requirements to be used as receptacle for liquids, solids, or gases. To qualify as a non-bulk, it must satisfy the following 450 liters, such as 119 gallons of whatever the gas or liquid you're carrying, or less for liquids. 400 kilograms, which is 882 pounds, or less, and so forth as we discovered above. Your engine runs a pump when you are delivering compressed gas. After finishing the delivery, when should you turn off the engine? Turn it off before unhooking the hose. So you're basically discussing your engine here as it runs when you're driving and with compressed or whatever compressed gas. After finishing the delivery, when should you turn off the engine? Turn it off before unhooking the hoses, or you have turned it off after unhooking the hoses. Whenever you're done all that you need to do, or leave it on the entire time. You don't want to leave that if you're not carrying anything. Turn it off on arrival. Use other power to run the pump. So technically you're supposed to not use it when you're unloading. And the goal is okay. So the goal is, I just see what happened. You're keeping your engine on while your pump on a load for compressed gases adds extra risk. As soon as the delivery is completed, turn off the engine before you unhook any hoses. So basically, since you completed the delivery and everything, you just go turn it off before unhooking the hoses, because you're not going to need it. When you're driving, it's running it to basically keep everything else under control. What is a technical name? The name of a hazardous materials most commonly used in the trucking community and accepted as a standard. We're going to run into that. The name of hazardous materials used in scientific journals and text, recognized as its chemical and microbiological name. That is true. The medical term for hazardous materials used by medical personnel. All of that. The name of hazardous material most commonly used on the street. Negative, but that would be the answer here. The technical name used by scientific, which appears in journals, articles, and technical handbooks. It provides a standard terminology for dangerous substance, which is hazmat, instead of slang terms that can vary to dangerous effect from region to region. How far are you allowed to park from a bridge, tunnel, or building if you are carrying Division 1.2 or 1.3 materials? First option here we have at least 400 feet. No, but it's good if you can. At least 600 feet. You good in a way. At least 500 feet. And finally we have at least 300 feet. So as long as you're at least 300 feet parked away from whatever, carrying those specific classes, which are like flammables within those division, you're gonna be at least 300. When driving with a load of divisions 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3, which are the different division within the explosive family, which are explosive, you must park at least 300 feet away from any bridge, tunnel, structure. You must maintain the same distance from any gathering place or open fire. And that was question 30. We knocked it. Past that, easy just like that. And of course, if you want to go more, you just boom, retake it again or select different test. But the more you do it, the better. And we all know the necessary requirements to obtain that specific endorsement within the CDL. So hope y'all like that. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like. Until next time.